Hey, welcome back to the Big Jake podcast. It is April 16th, and we have got a lot to discuss. Whole lot of fun stuff happened in the last week. There's a couple of things I'm looking forward to as well. So, most recently, this last Thursday, I was in Bowling Green, Kentucky. So, very exciting place to be. And I performed as part of the agricultural department for the University of Kentucky. Part of the joke and part of the fun was while I was on stage trying to figure out who these people were. I'm in this giant conference room at a Holiday Inn, and almost all women, to the point that I thought this was a women's conference. There was two guys, and I made jokes like, oh, they let you guys in here, and they're like, no, we're supposed to be in here. It was just happened to be mostly women. The role that these individuals serve in the agricultural departments at University of Kentucky happened to be filled by women. I had no idea. So it was a hoot. I really enjoyed it. It's my friend Drew Davis from Nashville. He opened for me. He did a good job. The microphone in this room was not good. It crackled and just didn't sound good. So it's a little disappointing because I set up my video and I took video and I had some fun interactions that I think would make fun videos, little shorts, whatever. But the audio, there's no way it works because it just sounded so bad while I was there. But there were some fun parts for sure. I was giving one guy a hard time. This other gal, I was giving her a hard time. She had a real thick accent, and it was a lot of fun for me. I enjoyed it. And then on Friday and Saturday, I was in Chattanooga, Tennessee, for the shows with Jeff Allen at the Comedy Catch. Comedy Catch is a absolutely lights out, so much fun club, and it's a little unusual because Jeff Allen's a big enough name to have multiple shows over the course of a weekend, but they only did 3 shows. 1 show Friday, 2 shows Saturday. I thought that was a little strange because they sold out all 3 shows, which to me says they could have sold more tickets. But they did the 3 shows, and the 3 shows were great. I did 20 minutes, which was fine. It's a little bit short for the feature position. I'm not complaining. So I'm kind of complaining. I'm not really, no. I did want maybe do a little bit more because 20 feels kind of short. And then Jeff would do a long set at the end. And by the time he gets off stage, you just forget that anybody else was part of this. Now, of course, it's his show. They're there to see him. They're not there to see me. I get it. But from the feature position, I like to do 25 or 30. But 20, still very good, very fun club. Very much looking forward to going back there. The interesting thing was Jeff Allen, he's an older guy. He's 67. He mentions that in his stand-up quite a bit. And his audience tends to be older as well. So the two shows on Saturday were earlier than normal. Usually the shows would be something like 7:30 and 9:30. But because it's him and his audience, the shows on Saturday were 6 and 8:30. So that's kind of early for a comedy show. I was talking to him and he says, yeah, a lot of my fans don't like driving when it's night. I didn't expect to hear that, but it makes sense. And they were a hoot. They definitely liked him. He's got a new book coming out. He's entitled it, Are We There Yet? It's not a comedy book. Apparently it's more of a marriage or maybe even addiction book, the way that he was describing it. So I'm not real sure what to think of it. I'll probably give it a look, but it's not out yet, but it will be soon. So that was fun. He's a very funny guy, very nice guy. I'm a big fan. I was excited that I got to work with him. Coming up, I've got a couple of fun shows this weekend. I've got shows in Louisville, in Lexington, in Marietta, Georgia, in Hannibal, Missouri, and in Iowa. So I've got a lot of shows in a lot of different places. So instead of just going to Chattanooga and setting up shop for a couple of days, it's a lot more traveling. But it's some good shows are coming up. So I'm going to go to Georgia and Iowa. The Iowa show I'm probably most looking forward to. I believe it starts at like 11:45, so almost midnight on Saturday night. And it's the after prom party for some school. That sounds so weird and so much fun. I'm into it. And then there's another show on Thursday. It's supposed to be in Lexington. They canceled on me or postponed on me about a month ago, which is always a little bit frustrating because typically what happens is they'll say, hey, I know we're supposed to have our show on Thursday, but can we do it in a month? And you're like, fine. Because if I say no, it's still going to get canceled on Thursday. So it doesn't really matter what I say. But you say, no, let's reschedule it. But the frustrating piece is then that's another date in the next month that you can't book. So this corporate gig, which is going to be this Thursday, I could have booked something else. Somebody else reached out to me and said, hey, are you available that day? And I said, no, I'm not available that day. So when you're selling your time and one event takes two slots, the original date and now the new date, it's a little bit frustrating. It's the nature of the beast. And corporate gigs pay decent, so I don't really mind. But it's what happens. I'm looking forward to that. In other comedy news, there is a Moth storytelling event here in Louisville at the end of the month. The topic for the month is clean. And I've been telling myself I need to write my clean story. Whatever story I'm going to do at the Moth, I need to write it. I need to perform it. I need to go to open mic. I need to work it out. And I haven't. I haven't even narrowed down what story I want to do. There's a couple of stories that I'm looking forward to. A couple of stories I think are good, but I haven't written any of them down. So I'm a little frustrated. I had time this weekend, but I just didn't do it. Such is life sometimes. I am considering adding some things to my act. Not only storytelling. I mean, I think storytelling and comedy go well together. But some more unusual things I'm thinking about adding to my act. So if you're watching the video, you can see behind me I've got a ukulele. And if you've watched the other videos, there's an empty ukulele spot right there. And I also have a banjo ukulele, or often called a banjolele. And I'm considering trying to add that to my act. I think it's funny, I think it's weird, but I also think it's a little hacky. Back in Denver, there was a lot of people who used ukuleles in their stand-up, and it was never thought of in a glowing manner. It was like, oh, okay, this guy's got a ukulele. So there's that. There's also the consideration that I'm not very good at it. I can play it a little bit, but I would not even come close to saying I'm good. I also can't sing. So if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to strum the ukulele and sing a little song, nope, can't do that. I might be able to strum the ukulele and say a one-liner. Does that help? I don't know. Is it worth pursuing? Maybe. Should I ask myself more rhetorical questions on the podcast? Probably. So there's a lot to consider with that. I do like the idea because, I don't know, I think it's just funny, a really big guy, a really small ukulele. Humor. But I'm also considering, and I mentioned this last week, using impressions or trying to learn impressions. So this week, I started trying to work on impressions and watching some videos and reading some things about impressions and how to do it and what sort of vocal exercises could help in doing impressions. The one thing I really liked about it is not only is it interesting and I'm just into it, but it's something I could practice when I'm driving. So this weekend, I've got to go from Kentucky to Georgia to Missouri to Iowa, back to Kentucky. I'm all over the place. I'm going to be in the car quite a few hours this week. I know that. I can't play ukulele when I'm in the car, but I could work on impressions. And there's something about that I really like. I didn't do it this weekend. I drove quite a bit as well. I went to Chattanooga and came back. Could have worked on the impressions while I was on the road and didn't, but I do like the idea. So, there's something to that, I guess, liking an idea. So, those are some of the thoughts. I got a notification this morning that this podcast on Spotify just reached 10 total listens. Unbelievable. That is 10 more than I expected. I'm doing it just for fun. I'm having a ball. But if there is anybody listening and you have some thoughts and say, hey, Jake, you should definitely do more impressions, or hey, Jake, the ukulele would be so much fun, let me know. I'm not going to hold my breath because you're probably not listening, and that's okay. We can still be friends. I'm going to tell you this story of a fun event that happened. So I love going places by myself. I love going to the movies. This weekend I was in Chattanooga. As part of that, I went to the movies by myself. I enjoy the movies by myself. I don't understand why people want to go to the movies with people. That doesn't even make any sense. Let's sit next to each other in a dark room where we're not allowed to talk. No. I mean, if you want to go play hockey with people, that sounds fun. Maybe not hockey, but the idea that you're going to the movies with somebody, I'm not into. However, going to the movies, I'm super into. Anyway, a few years ago, I'm working at a pretty swanky Christian school. I'm working at this school outside of Denver, and I'm starting to get into comedy and all things comedy related. As part of that, I was doing some improv with some of the students. I was teaching them improv. I was doing some improv classes and having fun with the students. So getting to know some of the students that are more theatrical than I would normally get to know. So I, at this time, am also just interested in all things comedy. I noticed that the Book of Mormon, the musical The Book of Mormon, was playing at the Denver Center for the Performing Arts. Now, the Book of Mormon regularly sells out. However, if you're just looking for one ticket, it's not that hard. And I was just going to go by myself. So I look it up and find one ticket. Not that expensive. I'm sitting on this weird bar stool thing. So I go there. I go to the first act of the Book of Mormon. And loved it. Was having an absolute ball. And in between the first act and second act, I go outside into the little mezzanine and just stretching my legs. And a student who recognizes me from school comes up to me. He's probably a junior. He's there with his mom. Both him and his mom are dressed like Mormons. So they've got the white shirt, the black tie, the black pants. And so they're, whimsical and they're having a good time. And Mr. Hovis, Mr. Hovis. This was before my doctorate, so Mr. Hovis was still a respectful term. And they say, hey, how's it going? What are you doing here? Are you having a good time? I'm like, yeah, I'm here alone. I just kind of on a whim bought tickets to the show and thought I would give it a shot. I said, that's great. And so then they had me take a picture of them. Because they were there. They were excited and dressed up. So I take a picture and then I go back to my little bar stool. Well, he's got really good seats. On the lower level, kind of off to the side a little bit, but good seats. The second act is about to start, and he comes and finds me. And he says, hey, the guys that were sitting next to us in our seats, they got sick, and they're leaving. They're not going to come back. So there's going to be empty seats next to us. They're a lot better than the seats that you've got right now. You want to come sit with us? And I said, sure. So then I went down and I sat next to this kid and watched the second half of the Book of Mormon. Now, the Book of Mormon musical is written by the guys from South Park. It's not the most family-friendly musical. Now, I didn't really know what to expect. I had never seen it. I don't know, but I was a fan of comedy. And at this point, I'd been doing open mics and I've been doing improv and whatever. So nothing really shocks me. Of course, I'm not a 16-year-old kid who's now sitting in between a teacher on one side and his mom on the other side while we watch a musical that is quite raunchy. I was laughing hysterically, mostly at the writing and the acting of the musical, but I also thought it was super funny how uncomfortable this kid must have felt. He's got a teacher, his Christian school teacher on one side, his mom on the other, and just some of the most raunchy, ridiculous stuff coming out from the second half. If you know the second half of the Book of Mormon, you know what I'm talking about. But that I thought that was a fun fun thing to think about. So I'm going to talk about some of the books I've been reading. This last week, I finished Delete That by John Crist. Really enjoyed it. He did have kind of a theme in the book that I thought was odd, but also enjoyed. I liked how honest he was in the book. And I liked that he was taking ownership of some thoughts that I personally don't really think about. He was talking about trying to be a perfect person, trying to be a good role model, and really concerned about what people thought of him, and would go to CVS and get some itch cream and be really embarrassed and pretend like he didn't have an itch, or he would go out and do something that he didn't think people would appreciate, and they would tag him in a video, in a Instagram post, and he would untag himself. Nothing like that I've ever even thought about doing. So that's not really me, but I understand why he's doing that. I also really appreciated how honest he was with how humor and creating videos and getting online love and online attention and notifications and stuff like that were filling him. Like, he felt empty inside, and he was trying to fill himself with applause and with accolades, and how that drove him to his current state of not only success but also of codependence. So it was interesting and honest, and I really liked it, and made me think quite a bit. I was continuing to read The Motivation Myth, so I'm not very far into it. I'm thinking about 3 or 4 chapters into it. There's still probably 70% of the book left, but I will read and then think about it. And he had a couple of things in the most recent chapter that I read that I really enjoyed and resonated with. And he's talking about process. He's talking about, okay, you've got your goal, and now determine a process that will get you that goal, and then forget about the goal and just work the process. So I really like that mentality, and now it's all about thinking about what is the best process. And one of the things that he said in the most recent chapter that stood out to me is, if you're going to modify your process, only modify it if it will improve the likelihood of reaching your goal. Don't modify it out of boredom or laziness, which is, I think, obvious, but also good. I did read a thriller in the last week. I read Along Came a Spider by James Patterson. It's the first Alex Cross novel. And there's parts of it that I liked. Overall, not a fan. Was not into it. Alex Cross as a character, I thought, was both like too good and too selfish. He's too smart, like almost like superhuman smart. He gets injured in one scene, and it says, "Oh, look how injured he is," but he never appears injured. So he's superhuman strength. I don't know. I did not find him relatable. Honestly, there was just a couple of scenes in the book that I'm like, I'm not into this. I'm glad I finished it. There's this book that's 100 Thrillers. I think that's the name of or 100 Thrillers that you need to read, something like that. And this is on that list, so I'm glad I read it because I'd like to, work through that list, but was not into it. So, James Patterson, I don't know if I'm going to give you another shot, but not my thing. As far as diet goes, I this week have been essentially off any sort of diet, and that is because the week before that I did a 8-day fast in which I only drank water and tea and tried to do some things to reset my metabolism and cleanse a little bit. And part of me enjoyed it. Part of me suffered. I don't know. I really want to get into fasting. And by day 3, day 4, I felt great. And I heard that the first 4 days are the worst. Day 5, I was feeling okay. 6, not that great. Day 7, I'm like, if this keeps up, I'm not going to be able to make it. Day 8, I'm like, this is not great. And it was really dealing with, I think, some dehydration issues and more issues than I really wanted to. But for the first longer fast in recent years, it was a successful experiment, and want to keep going. I mentioned this not too long ago, is a wheelchair commercial bit that I've been working on. I tried that again last week, and it worked really well. It's not perfect, so this weekend in Chattanooga, I kind of wanted to throw it in, and if I had 25 minutes, I probably would have done that. But because I had 20 minutes, I'm like, I don't want to experiment with a bit that's not all the way to the finish line, but it's close. So I really have been enjoying that bit, the wheelchair ramp commercial bit. And it needs a little bit of more work, but it's getting there. The other bit that I want to work on, where my wife in college used to offer me a half of stick of gum instead of a full stick of gum. I like that concept. Where I actually want to go with the bit, I'm not sure, but it's I think it's interesting. I haven't tried it on stage yet, so it's one of those that's on the back burner at the moment. This weekend I might give it a shot. I'm hosting the open mic at the Caravan on Wednesday. On Tuesday, I've got a show in Ohio. And tomorrow, I'm going to probably just, jump over to the Planet of the Tapes open mic and see if I can get on. And if I do, I might throw that bit up there. So that that's what I'm going on, and I'll see y'all later. Thanks for joining me, and take care.